Parents, how did the system fail your child? My 8-year-old son had a seizure at school, and I got a $300 parking ticket while he was in the ER. When I contested it, the hospital administrator doubled it to $600. Then I found out his wife parks in that same emergency-only spot every day for her yoga class next door. The school called at 10:47 a.m. Your son had a seizure. The ambulance is taking him to Memorial Hospital. I drove like a maniac. The ER lot was completely full. I saw the reserved spots near the entrance. Emergency medical staff only. This was an emergency. My son was the emergency. I parked and ran inside. We stayed for 6 hours while they ran tests, adjusted medications, monitored his vitals. When we finally left, exhausted and drained, there it was under my windshield wiper. $300 parking violation. I went to the parking office the next day. The seizure happened at school. Here's the ER paperwork. My son was admitted for emergency treatment. The administrator, Mr. Garrett, didn't even look up from his computer. Those spots are for emergency medical staff only. This was a medical emergency. My 8-year-old was having seizures. The spots are for staff, not patients or families. The entire lot was full. Where was I supposed to park while my son was? There's street parking 4 blocks away. Parents need to plan ahead for medical emergencies. Plan ahead for my son's seizure? His fingers clicked across the keyboard. I see here you're contesting the fine. That's your right. But frivolous challenges result in doubled penalties. Frivolous? My son was in the emergency room. The policy is clear. By contesting this valid citation, you're wasting administrative resources. Fine increased to $600. I left shaking with rage. $600 for parking while my son had a medical emergency. This was the same hospital I'd been going to for years. I even knew the names of all the parking attendants and brought them donuts once in a while. 2 days later, I was back at the hospital for my son's follow-up. Arriving early, I parked on the street 4 blocks away like a good little rule follower. Walking past those sacred reserved spots, I noticed something. A silver Lexus in the emergency medical staff spot with no hospital parking tag and a yoga mat in the back window. My son was the one to point out the bumper sticker while laughing. It read, "Namaste at Bliss Studio." Bliss Studio was literally next door to the hospital. I let my son play Fruit Ninja in the car while I waited to see who it was. 20 minutes later, a woman in designer workout clothes emerged from the yoga studio, climbed into the Lexus, and drove away. I knew she looked familiar, and when I went home, I did some research on the license plate. The car was registered to Jennifer Garrett. Mr. Garrett's wife was using emergency medical parking for her morning yoga. I documented it for a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 9 a.m. yoga class. Emergency medical parking spot. Sometimes she'd stay parked there for hours, grabbing coffee after class. The next hospital board meeting was open to the public. I brought my photos, my son's medical records, and my $600 fine. During public comment, I stood up. 2 weeks ago, I was fined $600 for parking in an emergency spot while my son was having seizures in your ER. Mr. Garrett told me those spots are sacred, that parents need to plan ahead for medical emergencies. I held up the first photo. This is Mrs. Jennifer Garrett's Lexus in that same sacred spot. Next photo. Here she is walking into the yoga studio next door. Not the hospital, the yoga studio. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, while parents circle the lot desperately looking for parking during their children's emergencies, Mrs. Garrett does downward dog in a spot reserved for medical staff. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Other parents started standing up. They charged me $400 when my daughter broke her arm, $250 for parking during my miscarriage. I had to leave my premature baby in the NICU to move my car. The board president tried to restore order, but parents kept shouting their stories. Apparently, Memorial's parking enforcement was legendary for its cruelty. Mr. Garrett's face had gone pale. He tried to slip out the side door, but a father blocked his path. Where's your wife supposed to park for yoga, Garrett? 4 blocks away? Within a month, the entire parking enforcement system was overhauled. Free parking for ER patients. Grace periods for medical emergencies. I was over the moon. But little did I know, Garrett wouldn't let me get away so easily. And it wasn't long before she taught me exactly what secrets rich people are hiding. 2 weeks later, I was sorting through mail when the official envelope arrived. Child Protective Services. My hands trembled as I tore it open. A formal investigation had been opened regarding an incident where my son was left unsupervised in a vehicle. The date matched perfectly. The day I'd let him play Fruit Ninja while documenting Jennifer's car. I drove to the pharmacy, my mind racing through possible responses. The CPS meeting was in 3 days. I needed my son's seizure medication refilled anyway. Standing in line, I felt someone step close behind me. Too close. Jennifer Garrett's voice floated over my shoulder, sweet as poisoned honey. She peered at the prescription bag the pharmacist was preparing. Levetiracetam, 500 milligrams. That's a serious dosage for such a young boy. You know, stress can trigger seizures in children, especially when their mothers are distracted by personal vendettas. My body went rigid. How did she know his exact medication? I spun around, my voice rising before I could stop it. You called CPS on me. You're trying to— Ma'am? The pharmacist looked concerned. Other customers shifted away from us. An elderly woman clutched her purse tighter. She's stalking my family. My voice cracked. She knows my son's medication. She filed a false report. The pharmacist reached for the phone. I'm going to need to call security if you can't lower your voice. Jennifer stepped back, hands raised innocently. I'm just here for my birth control. This woman's been harassing my family for weeks. She turned to the other customers with practiced concern. She took photos of my car, followed me to yoga. Now she's screaming at me in public. I grabbed my prescription and fled, Jennifer's satisfied smile burning into my memory. The next morning, my boss called me into her office. Dr. Patterson had been my supervisor for 3 years. She'd sent flowers when my son was first diagnosed with epilepsy. Now she couldn't meet my eyes. I'll be direct. Mr. Garrett's brother-in-law serves on the hospital board. There are concerns about an employee who's been, quote, orchestrating a harassment campaign against the parking administrator's family. My stomach dropped. Dr. Patterson, you know me. You know what happened with my son. I know you're going through a difficult time, but we can't have employees creating hostile work environments. If this escalates, your position here could be reconsidered. She finally looked at me. Please, just let this go. I left her office in a daze. 20 years of perfect employment reviews, and now my job was on the line. The CPS meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. That morning, the neurology clinic called. We had a cancellation. Dr. Martinez can see your son Thursday at 2:30 for his critical follow-up. If you miss this, the next opening isn't for 3 months. My hands shook. Can we do any other time? I have a conflict. I'm sorry, this is the only slot. Should I give it to someone else? I stared at the CPS letter. Missing the meeting would look terrible, but missing the neurology appointment meant 3 months without adjusting his medications. 3 months for Jennifer to document a pattern of medical neglect. Thursday at 2:30, I whispered. We'll be there. I chose my son's immediate medical needs. It was exactly what Jennifer wanted. Friday morning started with my car refusing to turn over. The mechanic found sugar in the gas tank. Seen 3 cars like this recently, he mentioned casually, all in your neighborhood. Weird coincidence. $800. My emergency fund, meant for the lawyer to fight CPS, evaporated. While waiting for the repair, my phone buzzed. The school. Your son's lunch account is past due. The autopay was canceled last month. He couldn't get lunch today. I hadn't canceled anything. Racing to fix that. Another call. My apartment complex. We've received multiple noise complaints. Loud music and disturbances all night. This is your final warning. I wasn't even home last night. I was at my sister's. The complaints are documented, ma'am. One more and we start eviction proceedings. By noon, I was sitting in my broken car, crying. Everything was falling apart at once. That evening, I opened Facebook to find a post in our neighborhood group. Jennifer Garrett, concerned mother, sharing her scary encounter at the pharmacy. The comments were brutal. This woman sounds unhinged. Following people to yoga? That's stalker behavior. Someone should check on her poor child. I started typing a response, then deleted it. Anything I said would make me look worse. Saturday brought a new horror. My son came home from playing at his friend's house with questions. Mom, why did the nice lady from the hospital tell Aiden's mom that you're sick? My blood ran cold. What nice lady, honey? Mrs. Garrett. She said you're sick and that's why you get so angry. But she said not to worry because she'll help take care of me if you have to go away. I pulled him close, fighting tears. She was poisoning my own child against me. The following week, I received an email from Hospital Legal. Security footage showed me taking photographs in the parking garage, a violation of patient privacy policies I'd agreed to. The attached screenshots were damning. Me crouched by cars, phone out, clearly documenting. What the email didn't show was why I was taking those photos. Just a woman seemingly stalking random vehicles. My best friend Maria called that night. Her voice was strained. Listen, I believe you about the Garretts, but Tom's up for promotion at the bank. Mr. Garrett's on the board there too. We can't. I mean, maybe you should just apologize? Let this go? Maria, they're trying to take my son. I know, but is proving a point about parking worth losing everything? After she hung up, I realized I was truly alone in this fight. The next morning at school pickup, I noticed the shift immediately. Parents who usually chatted with me suddenly found urgent reasons to check their phones. Conversations stopped when I approached. I caught fragments as I passed. CPS investigation, and that poor little boy. I wanted to scream the truth. Instead, I collected my son and walked to our car, head high, while judgment burned into my back. Tuesday's mail brought the formal restraining order. Mr. Garrett claimed I'd been stalking his family, following his wife, taking photographs, creating a hostile environment. I was ordered to stay 500 feet away from both Garretts. The kicker came at the bottom. Jennifer Garrett had just been approved as a volunteer classroom aide at my son's school. The same day the restraining order was filed. I called my lawyer with shaking hands. She'll be in his classroom. How can I stay 500 feet away when she's with my child? It's a problem, he admitted. You'll need to arrange alternative pickup. Maybe have someone else get him? I don't have anyone else anymore. The silence stretched. We'll figure something out, but you absolutely cannot violate this order. It'll destroy your custody case. That night, I lay awake planning. Jennifer had orchestrated this perfectly. Every move I made to defend myself became evidence against me. Every truth I tried to expose made me look more unstable, but I wasn't giving up. My son needed me to be smarter, not louder. If Jennifer wanted to play dirty, I'd have to learn the game. The war for my son had only just begun. The custody exchange happened at the police station parking lot. My ex-husband arrived with Jennifer beside him in the passenger seat. She wore my grandmother's pearl necklace, the one that went missing during our divorce proceedings. As my son climbed into their car, Jennifer hummed our wedding song while adjusting the pearls. I drove home with white knuckles gripping the steering wheel. Inside my apartment, I found a letter from CPS detailing our conversation from last week. The social worker's notes claimed I admitted to leaving my son unattended regularly. My hands shook as I read words I never said. The conversation I remembered was completely different. She'd called the report baseless and said the case would be closed. That evening, I discovered screenshots of my private messages circulating in the school parent Facebook group, texts I'd sent Maria during the worst of my divorce, venting about feeling overwhelmed and wanting to run away from everything. Someone had submitted them to the custody evaluation as evidence of abandonment ideation. The timestamp showed they were sent 2 years ago, during my darkest moments. My son returned from his weekend with troubling questions. He asked why I acted mean when I was sick, repeating Jennifer's exact phrasing. He mentioned Jennifer promised to take care of him if I had to go away to get better. The manipulation was working. My 8-year-old was being programmed to expect my absence. The doorbell camera captured my breakdown perfectly. After 3 nights of air horns blasting at random hours, car alarms mysteriously triggering, and music blaring from somewhere I couldn't locate, I finally snapped. The video showed me screaming at teenagers walking past my driveway. What it didn't show was the systematic harassment that preceded it. Within hours, the footage went viral with the caption, "Karen loses it on innocent kids." Family court treated my warnings about Jennifer's classroom access as parental alienation. The judge viewed my concerns as an attempt to interfere with my son's education, since Jennifer was just a helpful volunteer. My protests only reinforced their narrative of an unstable mother lashing out at a concerned community member. Late one night, I used my deceased mother's login credentials to access the hospital's donation database. My mother had worked in development before she passed, and IT never deactivated her account. The records revealed systematic theft, funds designated for parking improvements diverted to personal accounts. The Garretts had embezzled over $400,000 over 5 years. My last search query before logging out was, how to report fraud anonymously. Jennifer's Instagram told another story. Designer handbags, jewelry, and vacation photos that perfectly matched items reported missing from hospital charity auctions. She flaunted the evidence publicly, confident in her untouchability. Each post deepened my determination to expose them. My therapist received a subpoena to testify about our sessions. Confidential discussions about the Garrett family, shared in the safety of therapy, would now be twisted into evidence of obsession. The legal system was weaponizing my attempts to process trauma against me. I attempted to record Jennifer during a chance encounter at the grocery store. The moment she spotted my phone, she loudly announced she didn't consent to being recorded for my harassment campaign. Other shoppers turned to stare as she played the victim perfectly. Security escorted me out while she dabbed at fake tears. School pickup became an impossible puzzle. The restraining order required 500 feet of distance, but Jennifer stationed herself at the main entrance every day. I had to choose between violating the order or abandoning my son. I started parking 3 blocks away and watching him walk to me. Jennifer's satisfied smile visible even from that distance. The parking attendant who'd promised to testify about the Garrett's special treatment suddenly changed his mind. His daughter had just been accepted to the prestigious preschool with a full scholarship. He apologized profusely, but explained he had to think of his family first. Another witness lost to their influence. Jennifer's presence in my ex-husband's life grew more invasive. My son mentioned she used my special lavender lotion, slept on my side of the bed, and had rearranged the apartment to match our old home's layout. She wasn't just dating my ex. She was systematically replacing me in every aspect of my former life. The ultimatum came through my lawyer. lawyer. Jennifer offered to help with the CPS case if I publicly apologized for misunderstanding the parking situation and admitted to mental health struggles affecting my judgment. My refusal was documented as refusing therapeutic intervention recommended by a concerned family friend. Desperation drove me to investigate deeper. The original parking fine had been processed incorrectly. I'd actually qualified for a medical emergency exemption. The timestamp showed Mr. Garrett had altered the rejection after hours, falsifying the reason for denial. This wasn't just about parking anymore. It was systematic fraud. Digging through archived budget reports, I discovered the previous hospital administrator had been documenting the Garrett's embezzlement before his sudden death from a heart attack. His files, hidden in old budget folders, detailed years of financial manipulation. But more disturbing was the pattern. The money wasn't just stolen. It was used to pay off families the Garretts had previously targeted. My mother faced an impossible choice when I asked for her support. She explained she couldn't risk losing access to her grandson if I lost custody. Her neutrality felt like betrayal, but I understood. She agreed only to supervised visits, eliminating my childcare options during legal proceedings. The Garretts had isolated me from my last family support. I started adopting Jennifer's tactics. I volunteered at the senior center where her mother played bridge, spending hours discussing gardening and recipes before carefully steering conversations toward Jennifer's past. Slowly, I built rapport with the lonely woman who revealed more than she realized about her daughter's troubled history. The hospital's donor database still showed me as an emergency contact for several accounts. I downloaded everything I could before Mr. Garrett discovered the oversight. Financial records, donor communications, audit reports. The evidence of embezzlement was overwhelming, but I'd obtained it illegally. A new player entered the custody battle. My ex-husband's girlfriend, not Jennifer, but someone else entirely, filed for custody, claiming she could provide the stability my son needed. The two-way fight became a three-way war, dividing my resources even further. The call came during a legal meeting. My son had suffered a seizure at school. With everyone fighting for custody, no one was listed as an emergency contact. He went to the hospital alone in an ambulance while I raced from the lawyer's office. The incident was documented as medical neglect in my CPS file. A mother too busy with legal battles to ensure proper emergency care. Legal fees consumed everything. Credit cards maxed out while Jennifer retained the city's best family lawyer using embezzled funds. The financial inequality made fair representation impossible. Justice, I learned, was a luxury item. The confrontation at my son's favorite restaurant was carefully orchestrated. Jennifer arrived with my ex-husband, loudly expressing concern about my son's safety within earshot of staff and patrons. My son shrank in his seat as strangers stared. The manager asked us to leave. Another safe space destroyed. My job termination came via email. Excessive absences for personal legal matters made my position untenable. HR expressed regret, but explained the hospital needed reliable employees. My replacement started the following Monday. Jennifer's yoga friend's daughter, fresh out of college. I moved into my sister's basement, selling everything I could to fund the legal battle. Meanwhile, Jennifer posted photos from the spacious new house she shared with my ex-husband. My son's artwork decorated their refrigerator. His bedroom there was bigger than my entire basement space. The question that broke me came during a quiet moment. My son asked why I couldn't just apologize so everyone could be happy. The manipulation had worked. He now saw me as the obstacle to peace. I couldn't explain the complex web of fraud and custody battles to an 8-year-old who just wanted his seizures to stop and his family to get along. My investigation into hospital finances created unexpected casualties. An innocent billing clerk was suspended for unauthorized database access that I had actually performed. Her daughter's text message haunted me, describing her mother's inconsolable tears. I destroyed an innocent woman's career to gather evidence. The domino effect continued. The billing clerk's husband filed for divorce, citing stress from her work suspension and association with the hospital troublemaker, me. Their family unraveled because of my desperate search for evidence, but stopping meant losing my son. I pressed forward, hating myself more each day. My last remaining friend asked the question I couldn't answer during a moment of exhaustion. What if the Garretts really were trying to help now? What if Jennifer genuinely believed she was saving my son? The question hung between us because any response would sound paranoid, obsessive, unhinged, exactly what they'd painted me as. I made the decision to publicly admit to accessing databases illegally. It was the only way to maintain credibility about what I'd found. The admission would hurt my custody case, but without it, the embezzlement evidence meant nothing. I traded my freedom for the truth. The hospital records revealed my deepest shame. 3 years ago, overwhelmed by divorce proceedings, I'd been late filling my son's seizure medication. The delay had triggered his first major episode. The guilt I'd carried silently was now documented evidence. I had caused this. The Garretts weren't the only ones who'd failed my son. Jennifer's lawyer filed an emergency motion claiming immediate danger to my child. The court date moved up 3 weeks. Coincidentally, when my lawyer was scheduled for vacation, Jennifer had known his schedule, planned accordingly. I would face her team alone. Understanding Jennifer's motivation came through her mother's rambling stories. Jennifer had grown up with a mentally ill mother who'd been institutionalized when Jennifer was 12. She genuinely believed she was saving my son from the same fate. Her twisted compassion mixed with desperate need to be the stable mother she'd never had. I was her chance to rewrite history. The restraining order became meaningless when I discovered Jennifer's teenage daughter had evidence on her phone. I attended a house party where she was drinking, waited until she was intoxicated, and accessed her messages. The fraud evidence was all there, but I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The rule-following mother was gone. Proving one fraudulent transaction felt hollow when Jennifer broke down in the courthouse bathroom. We stood at opposite sinks, both crying, both destroyed by this war. She sobbed about her abusive childhood, her mother's abandonment, her desperate need to protect children. I saw myself in her pain and hated us both. The judge found Jennifer's counterclaim compelling. My documented obsession with her family, the illegal database access, the stalking behaviors, it all painted a picture of dangerous fixation. The truth had become my trap. Everything hinged on the billing clerk's testimony. Would she tell the truth despite losing everything? Would she lie to protect what remained of her life? Her decision would determine my son's future. Jennifer's daughter intercepted me outside the courthouse with her own plea. She knew about her mother's crimes but begged me to stop. If Jennifer went to jail, she'd lose everything. Her home, her stability, her chance at normal life. The teenager offered to help me if I backed off, but we both knew it was too late. The hospital community split into factions. Some colleagues knew about the fraud and had stayed silent for years. Others were genuinely shocked by the revelations. The divide destroyed working relationships and friendships. Memorial Hospital would never be the same. The judge's preliminary ruling devastated my hope. Financial crimes and custody were separate matters. Proving embezzlement wouldn't guarantee keeping my son. The best interests of the child doctrine didn't factor in parental crimes unrelated to childcare. Jennifer could be a thief and still be deemed a suitable guardian. I called in my last favor. My late mother's friend had audited hospitals before retirement. She owed my mother her career and agreed to review the financial records. Her forensic analysis confirmed systematic embezzlement, but fear of losing her pension prevented her from testifying. Another witness provided evidence but not testimony. The analysis revealed another layer of deception. My ex-husband had known about the Garrett schemes from the beginning. He'd stayed quiet in exchange for Jennifer's help winning custody. His betrayal ran deeper than the affair. He'd weaponized our son for money. The evidence existed in his email drafts, never sent but carefully composed. Detailed documentation of every fraudulent transaction, ready to deploy as blackmail when the time was right. He'd been playing everyone. Me, Jennifer, the Garretts. Our son was just leverage in his scheme. The final evidence proved our son had never been in danger. Everything, the CPS reports, the custody battles, the harassment, was about money and control. But using this evidence meant destroying my son's relationship with his father. He'd have to live knowing his dad had orchestrated his mother's downfall. I made the choice that broke my heart. I would use only evidence that didn't implicate his father, protecting my son from the full truth. He needed to believe one parent had loved him purely, even if it was a lie. Mr. Garrett's notarized financial disclosure became the smoking GN. His sworn statement contradicted the embezzlement records perfectly. He'd signed under penalty of perjury, creating a federal crime. The financial crimes would be prosecuted, but custody remained uncertain. I presented evidence focused solely on financial crimes, giving Jennifer partial mercy she didn't deserve. She realized what I was doing, protecting my son from the complete truth. Our eyes met across the courtroom, two mothers destroying each other for the right to love a child. Federal investigators took over the financial crimes case based on hospital fraud evidence. The Garretts would face justice for embezzlement, but my custody battle continued. Criminal prosecution and family court remained frustratingly separate. Both sides prepared for the final custody hearing with federal investigation looming. Jennifer's criminal charges complicated but didn't eliminate her custody claim. The war for my son would be decided by a judge who'd never met him, based on evidence that told only partial truths. The billing clerk made her choice. Despite losing her marriage and career, she would testify truthfully. Her integrity cost her everything, but she couldn't lie about what she'd seen. Heroes, I learned, were ordinary people who chose truth over comfort. As the final hearing approached, I reflected on what this war had cost. My career, friendships, financial security, and pieces of my soul I'd never recover. But my son remained the prize worth any price. The Garretts had taught me that rich people's real secret was believing their pain justified hurting others. I chose differently. Even as I adopted their tactics, I held on to one truth. My pain didn't give me the right to destroy innocence. Every line I crossed was for my son, not revenge. That distinction might be meaningless to those I'd hurt, but it kept me human in an inhuman fight. The custody hearing would begin tomorrow. Jennifer and I had transformed from mothers into weapons, aimed at each other by a system that profited from our destruction. Tomorrow, a judge would decide which weapon deserved to raise a child. But tonight, I tucked my son into his narrow bed in my sister's basement. He asked if tomorrow would make everyone happy again. I promised him I was trying, knowing happiness had become a casualty of war. We'd fought so hard to win, we'd forgotten what victory was supposed to look like. The real tragedy wasn't the embezzlement or fraud or even the custody battle. It was two broken women, products of their own traumas, destroying each other to heal wounds that would never close. Jennifer and I were more alike than different, desperate mothers willing to burn the world to save our children. Tomorrow would bring judgment, but tonight I held my son and whispered apologies he couldn't understand. For the medication I'd been late refilling, for the marriage that fell apart, for the war that made his childhood a battlefield, for choosing truth over peace. The war for my son had revealed everyone's hidden nature. The Garrett's greed, my ex-husband's manipulation, Jennifer's trauma, and my own capacity for cruelty. Rich or poor, we all had secrets. The only difference was how much collateral damage we could afford to cause while protecting them. The forensic auditor's analysis sat in my hands, trembling slightly as I reviewed the numbers one final time. My ex-husband's email drafts showed he'd documented every fraudulent transaction, waiting for the perfect moment to cash in. The evidence painted a clear picture. He'd orchestrated Jennifer's involvement from the beginning, using our son as bait. I made copies of everything except the emails implicating him. My son deserved one parent he could trust, even if that parent had betrayed us both. The selective evidence went into manila envelopes, organized by date and transaction type. The custody hearing arrived on a Tuesday morning. The courtroom filled with lawyers, social workers, and character witnesses. Jennifer sat across the aisle, her hands folded primly in her lap. My ex-husband lounged beside her, confident in his hidden leverage. The CPS worker shuffled papers, avoiding eye contact with everyone. My son's drawing lay among the court documents, a crayon family portrait that included Jennifer standing next to his father. The image twisted my stomach, but I focused on the task ahead. The billing clerk entered, her face gaunt from months of stress. Her husband had already filed divorce papers, which she clutched like a shield. The proceedings began with financial evidence, bank records, diverted funds, charity auction items appearing in Jennifer's social media posts. The judge reviewed each document methodically, while Jennifer's lawyer argued the financial crimes were unrelated to custody matters. My lawyer countered by establishing a pattern of deception and manipulation. The billing clerk took the stand despite everything she'd lost. Her voice remained steady as she detailed the database anomalies, the redirected funds, the systematic theft spanning years. Jennifer's lawyer attacked her credibility, highlighting her suspension and pending divorce. The clerk simply repeated what she'd seen in the files. Mr. Garrett's notarized financial disclosure became the cornerstone. The document contradicted every embezzlement record, creating undeniable proof of perjury. Federal prosecutors had already opened their investigation based on this evidence alone. The judge noted the criminal proceedings but emphasized they were separate from custody determination. Jennifer's breakdown came during her testimony. She spoke about her institutionalized mother, her fear of mental illness destroying children's lives. Her voice cracked, describing how she'd watched her own mother disappear into madness. She genuinely believed she was saving my son from a similar fate. The sincerity in her delusion was more terrifying than calculated evil would have been. My testimony focused on facts, not emotions. The parking ticket that started everything, the escalating harassment, the CPS reports filed after I'd documented her illegal parking, the systematic destruction of my support network. I presented each incident like building blocks, constructing the full picture of orchestrated persecution. The judge ordered a recess for psychological evaluations. Court-appointed psychologists would assess all parties seeking custody. Jennifer submitted willingly, confident her genuine concern would shine through. My ex-husband played the reformed father, suddenly interested in his son's welfare. I underwent evaluation knowing my actions during the investigation would count against me. During the break, Jennifer's teenage daughter approached me in the courthouse hallway. She handed me a flash drive containing screenshots of her mother's messages planning the harassment campaign. The girl's hands shook as she explained she couldn't watch another family destroyed. She'd seen what her mother's obsession had done to previous targets. The psychological Psychological reports revealed troubling patterns. Jennifer showed signs of delusional disorder with maternal fixation. My ex-husband displayed narcissistic traits with financial motivation overriding parental instincts. My report noted reactive behaviors stemming from systematic persecution, but deemed me the most stable option despite everything. Federal agents arrested Mr. Garrett during the lunch break. They led him out in handcuffs as his wife sobbed in the gallery. The embezzlement charges would destroy their carefully constructed life. Jennifer watched her in-laws arrest with dawning realization that her protected world was crumbling. The afternoon session focused on my son's best interests. Teachers testified about his anxiety during the custody battles. Medical records showed increased seizure activity correlating with the stress. The school counselor described his confusion about why Jennifer kept appearing in his life, why his mother seemed so upset all the time. My mother finally chose a side. She testified about watching her daughter's systematic destruction, the isolation tactics, the financial strangulation. She admitted her fear of losing access to her grandson had kept her silent too long. Her testimony carried weight as a neutral party who'd witnessed everything. The judge's deliberation lasted 2 hours. When she returned, her expression revealed nothing. She began by acknowledging the complex web of crimes surrounding the custody battle. Financial fraud, harassment, false reports, privacy violations. Everyone involved had crossed legal lines. Primary custody went to me with conditions. Mandatory therapy for both my son and me. Supervised visitation for his father, who would face separate charges for conspiracy once I anonymously submitted his email evidence to prosecutors. Jennifer was banned from any contact with my son, pending her own criminal trial. The Garrett's financial empire unraveled within weeks. Federal investigators froze accounts, seized assets, and uncovered decades of embezzlement. The hospital faced massive restructuring. Dozens of employees who'd stayed silent about suspected fraud found themselves under investigation. Jennifer's mental health evaluation led to court-ordered treatment. Her genuine belief that she was saving children didn't excuse her actions but explained them. Her daughter moved in with relatives, finally free from her mother's destructive patterns. The cycle of trauma had created another broken family. My ex-husband's blackmail scheme backfired spectacularly. Anonymous tips led investigators to his email drafts, revealing his conspiracy with the Garretts. He'd planned to extort them after gaining full custody, using our son as leverage for a massive payout. The evidence I'd protected him from eventually surfaced anyway. The billing clerk found new employment at a smaller clinic. Her integrity during the trial had impressed several healthcare administrators who'd followed the case. Her husband proceeded with the divorce, but she'd chosen truth over comfort and could live with that decision. The hospital parking system underwent complete reformation. Free emergency parking, grace periods for medical crises, and an independent review board for violations. The changes came too late for my battle, but would help future families. Small victories mattered in wars with no real winners. My son's seizures gradually stabilized as his stress decreased. The therapy sessions helped him process the confusion of adults fighting over him. He stopped asking about Jennifer, stopped drawing her in family pictures. Children adapt faster than adults, finding new normal in chaos. The financial restitution hearings dragged on for months. Embezzled funds were traced, assets liquidated, victims compensated. I received a settlement for wrongful termination and harassment, enough to rebuild stability, but not enough to erase the damage. Money couldn't buy back lost time or innocence. Some Memorial Hospital colleagues reached out with apologies. They'd known something was wrong but feared retaliation. The culture of silence had enabled years of fraud. The hospital implemented whistleblower protections, closing barn doors after horses had bolted. The parent community remained divided. Some viewed me as a troublemaker who destroyed a prominent family. Others saw a mother who'd fought impossible odds to protect her child. I stopped caring about their opinions, focusing only on my son's healing. Jennifer served weekends in minimum security while attending intensive therapy. Her crimes were serious but non-violent. Her mental health issues documented. She sent one letter through her lawyer, apologizing for the pain while still insisting she'd tried to help. I didn't respond. My ex-husband's limited visitation occurred at a supervised facility. He played the devoted father for 2 hours every other week while his own criminal case proceeded. My son enjoyed the visits but no longer asked why daddy couldn't come home. Children learn harsh truths through experience. Rebuilding required conscious choices. I found part-time work at a nonprofit helping families navigate custody battles. The pay was modest, but the purpose was clear. My experience became a roadmap for others facing similar battles, though none quite matched the surreal escalation of mine. The parking lot still triggered anxiety. I'd park legally, feed the meter obsessively, document everything. Some wounds become permanent reminders of battles survived. The fear of authority figures abusing power would never fully fade. 2 families from the parent group became unexpected allies. They'd witnessed the harassment, stayed silent from fear, but testified when it mattered. We formed a support network, understanding born from shared experience. Not quite friendship, but something necessary. My son played at the park on weekends, his laughter unmarred by adult complications. He'd survived a war he never chose, carrying scars he couldn't yet understand. My job was to minimize those scars, to build something stable from rubble. The Garrett's house sold at auction. Jennifer and my ex-husband's home followed suit. Material symbols of their constructed life disappeared into legal fees and restitution. The wealth built on others' pain dissolved into court-ordered payments. 18 months after that first parking ticket, I watched my son chase butterflies in the park, his medication properly managed, his world stabilized, his trust slowly rebuilding. The war had ended not with victory, but with survival. Sometimes that's enough.